Kevin did a great job of kicking everything off and telling you a little bit about what we're here to present today, but what he didn't tell you is I'm actually here to talk to you about chicken. Fried chicken, to be exact. But before I get into the fried chicken story, I got to tell you a little bit about myself. So I've been in the field of higher education for about 8.5 years now. I'm a recovering banker. And I made the transition into education like I said, about 8.5 years ago, because I was kind of reaching the peak of what I could accomplish in the banking industry and was feeling a little burnt out. And I started to do a little soul searching and trying to figure out what it is that I did enjoy accomplishing from a career aspect. And what I figured out was that I did like banking. And what I really liked about banking was taking the time to educate my clients on how to run their businesses more efficiently. So I thought, maybe that's what I'll do. I'll go back to school, get some master's degree so I can teach business courses, specifically marketing and finance, and the rest is kind of history, as they say. And I really enjoyed myself in the field of higher education. So how did I come to chicken? So here I am teaching a class, a management class, a mid-level management class for undergraduate students, and I'm grading papers, the most fun activity any instructor can do. And I have a group of great students. They're writing great papers, and I'm genuinely enthused about this type of stuff that they're writing. And all of a sudden, in the middle of this paper, it's very well written paper actually, pretty interesting paper, there it is. I feel like chicken for dinner. And I thought, man, I must be getting late. I must have read that wrong. Rub my eyes, read it again. I feel like chicken for dinner tonight. I said, okay, that's it. It's been too long of a day. I read too many papers. I excused myself. I went and did some other activities, made some dinner myself. And I came back, and there it was. It was still there. It was still in the paper. I feel like fried chicken for dinner tonight. And then I realized what was happening. Now, I could have reacted in a way thinking that the student was trying to pull fast one on me. He was trying to take a shortcut. He was trying to be sneaky. But what I realized was that, and maybe Dr. Medina can share some similar stories, right? I think in the psychology industry they call it pride for help. Right? In education, he was telling me that he was bored. Right? He wanted something different than to write a paper every single week on a similar topic, every single week. He was looking for something different. And so I thought, I probably need to look into this a little bit. So the next week when I went to class, I brought in a bucket of fried chicken. And I set it down at his table, and the class looked at me and said, how come he gets chicken? I said, why don't you explain to the class why you got chicken tonight for dinner? What? You read that? Right? He wasn't certain I was reading the papers. Maybe I was just going through the motions. So I had a nice conversation with him. He's a fabulous student, by the way. He graduated. He has a fantastic job up in the San Francisco area, and I still stay connected with this individual. But so I started to probe him a little bit. And yes, the routine and the systematic approach to education wasn't working for him. Then I started to look at some numbers and attendance and related to how students are actually participating in the class. Are they doing the bare minimum? Are they showing up with enthusiasm and interest in actually learning what there is to come for that? And sure enough, there's this high number of absenteeism. So I figured there's got to be something to do here. There has to be a way to better engage our students in the learning process. In education as a whole, for-profit, traditional education, non-profit, whatever the case happens to be, even in the work experience, right? I do a lot of training in kind of corporate America effective settings and work with chief learning officers and things like that, heads of HR that are looking to develop trainings, right? The Gallup poll estimates that the cost of disengaged employees in the United States costs the businesses $350 billion. $350 billion because your employees are disengaged in the process of moving up the food chain or developing themselves as leaders within their own right. So I did some research. I'm going to share with you a little bit of research. I'm going to share with you very quickly some of the things that I've done to implement in my own classrooms and kind of share some of the results with you. Okay? So with that, we're going to get into the knowledge tree here. We'll see what we can figure out. So again, I'm going to give you some kind of breakdown here. When I presented this to faculty members, because a lot of what I do in my day job is coach and work directly with faculty members. Invited them to a meeting and shared this information with them and realized that what I was about to introduce to them was a tremendous paradigm shift in the way that they were probably brought up in an educational system themselves, in the way that they were trained to deliver education as an instructor. Okay. So, we got to the root of the problem, right? We literally got down and dirty with the students, had candid conversations with the students and said, what's going on here? What is the challenge for you? And here's what they told us. There's inconsistency across the instructors that they have in their program. Some instructors are what students like to refer to as APA Nazis, right? Super hard graders, grade on the wrong thing, didn't give me good feedback on my content, and other faculty members, I'm not even sure they read my paper because I wrote, I feel like chicken for dinner in my paper, and they didn't make a comment about it. Okay, frustrations with groups. A lot of times we know in corporate America, there's a lot of benefit to working in a group setting, right? Most of the work that we do in most of our day jobs involves working with others, right? When you ask employers what's the #1 quality they want from student graduates, it's the ability to work with others. It kind of makes sense, right? Because we look at the fact that they're hiring one individual to come into a team of already existing people. Right? So we want to know that you're able to work with other individuals. But as a student, it's frustrating, just like it's frustrating for the rest of us in corporate America, because why? There's always somebody on the team that's not pulling their weight. There's somebody on the team that always feels like they're the boss when they're not really, or whatever the case is, right? So they have some challenges with dealing with groups and being effective in the process. And ultimately, what it leads to is lack of engagement. They're disengaged, right? I talk to students, well, I always miss the Monday class because I'm allowed to miss class, and that's my extra day I give myself. And that seems to be counterintuitive to the whole reason why you would pursue education in the first place. So we wanted to fix that a little bit. So nobody explains it better than Dr. Ken Robinson, or Sir Ken Robinson. So I'm going to play this video for you, and I apologize, it's a little bit long than I normally like to play, but the content is really good, and you'll find it very informational.
Every country on earth at the moment is reforming public education. There are two reasons for it. The first one is
That's the Wi-Fi here.
economic. People are trying to work out how do we educate our children to take their place in the economies of the 21st century. How do we do that? Given that we can't anticipate what the economy will look like at the end of next week, as the recent turmoil is demonstrating. How do we do that? The second is culture. Every country on earth is trying to figure out how do we educate our children so they have a sense of cultural identity and so that we can pass on the cultural genes of our communities while being part of the process of urbanization. How do you square that circle? The problem is they're trying to meet the future by doing what they did in the past. And on the way, they're alienating millions of kids who don't see any purpose in going to school. When we went to school, we were kept there with a story, which is if you worked hard and did well, and got a college degree, you would have a job. Our kids don't believe that. And they're right not to, by the way. You're better having the degree than not. It's not a guarantee anymore. And particularly not if the route to it marginalizes most of the things that you think are important about yourself. And so people say we have to raise standards as if this is a breakthrough. You know, like, really, yes, we should. Why would you lower them? You know, I haven't come across an argument that persuades me of lowering them. But raising them, of course we should raise them. The problem is that the current system of education was designed and conceived and structured for a different age. It was conceived in the intellectual culture of the Enlightenment and in the economic circumstances of the Industrial Revolution. Before the middle of the 19th century, there were no systems of public education. Not really. I mean, you could get educated by Jesuits, if you had the money. But public education, paid for from taxation, compulsory to everybody and free at the point of delivery, that was a revolutionary idea. And many people objected to it. They said it's not possible for many street kids, working class children, to benefit from public education. They're incapable of learning to read and write, and why are we spending time on this? So there's also built into it a whole series of assumptions about social structure and capacity. It was driven by an economic imperative of the time, but running right through it was an intellectual model of the mind, which was essentially the Enlightenment view of intelligence. That real intelligence consists in the capacity for a certain type of deductive reasoning and a knowledge of the classics originally, what we come to think of as academic ability. And this is deep in the gene pool of public education, of the really two types of people, academic and non-academic, smart people and non-smart people. And the consequence of that is that many brilliant people think they're not, because they've been judged against this particular view of the mind. So we have twin pillars, economic and intellectual. And my view is that this model has caused chaos in many people's lives. It's been great for some, for a few people who have benefited wonderfully from it, but most people have not. Instead they suffer this. This is the modern epidemic, and it's as misplaced and it's as fictitious. This is the plague of ADHD. Now, this is a map of the incidence of ADHD in America, or prescriptions for ADHD. Don't mistake me here, I don't mean to say there is no such thing as attention deficit disorder. I'm not qualified to say if there is such a thing. I know that a great majority of psychologists and paediatricians think there is such a thing. But it's still a matter of debate. What I do know for a fact is it's not an epidemic. These kids are being medicated as routinely as we had our tonsils taken out. And on the same whimsical basis, and for the same reason, medical fashion. Our children are living in the most intensely stimulating period in the history of the earth. They're being besieged with information and calls for their attention from every platform, computers, from iPhones, from advertising organs, from hundreds of television channels. And we're penalising them now for getting distracted. From what? Boring stuff. At school, for the most part. It seems to me not a coincidence totally that the incidence of ADHD has risen in parallel with the growth of standardised testing. Now, these kids are being given Ritalin and Adderall and all manner of things, often quite dangerous drugs, to get them focused and calm them down. But according to this, attention deficit disorder increases as you travel east across the country. People start losing interest in Oklahoma. They can hardly think straight in Arkansas. And by the time they get to Washington, they've lost it completely. And there are several reasons for that. It's a fictitious epidemic. If you think of it, the arts.
So the video goes on. If you want to see the rest of it, don't worry. I'm going to share that with you later. What I did want to highlight from that video is the comment that Sir Robinson made about the students being besieged by all this type of digital technology and these distractions and these things like this. What age do you think the average person in the United States gets their first cell phone? 5, 10, 8, anybody else? 7, the age of 7, okay? And you think of the concept that at age 7, that becomes their whole world, okay? Every piece of information that they get, their entertainment, their education value is there. And then what? I want you to come listen to some old guy talk for 4 hours in the classroom? It's not going to work so well, right? So we have to figure out a different way to deliver education in a meaningful way for these individuals. And then obviously the ADHD map there is not only entertaining but somewhat enlightening, right? Because the prescriptions we can track that information, right? And it doesn't seem to be fitting that it should be increased as we move east across the country. And I know Dr. Lachapelle is going to cover a little bit on some attention span information. So here's what some data survey that we took a few years ago from about 300,000 students, what they tell us is important in an educational process. The quality of the faculty member and the experience inside the classroom. It's not how many fun activities you have on the campus. It's not how many resources are available to them and how many pep rallies there are out in quad or whatever the case happens to be. Quality faculty members and a good experience inside the classroom. Okay, something that's meaningful to them. This chart I'm going to skip past, but it just talks about how students gauge their overall loyalties and effectiveness to a particular university on whether or not they felt that their education added value to the success of their career path. So now let's dig into the fruits of our educational model here. I'm not sure why that doubled up, but many of you who are in education probably familiar with Bloom's taxonomy when it comes to education and kind of the learning process. On the left there you see the old version. Starts with knowledge at the base, at the foundation, builds up through comprehension, ultimately, so we get to the point where students can make an evaluation, aka they can perform well on a test. Right? They answered all the right questions to prove that they learned what they learned. The new model starts with remembering, okay? And building up through understanding, and ultimately creating something new. Because ultimately that's what we want from students, right? Not to be able to regurgitate the same stuff that we taught them, but to take the information that we taught them and create something new out of it. I'm going to play this one, it's going to be real short.
When you have a program that's about integrating life and passion, well, you start with why. And that kicks us off for the first speaker tonight, Simon Sinek. We can talk, start with why.
We assume we know why we do what we do. But then how do we explain when things don't go as we assume? Or better, how do you explain when others are able to achieve things that seem to defy all the assumptions? For example, why is Apple so innovative? Year after year after year after year, they're more innovative than all their competition. And yet, they're just a computer company. They're just like everyone else. They have the same access, the same talent, the same agencies, the same consultants, the same media. Then why is it that they seem to have something different? Why is it that Martin Luther King led the Civil Rights Movement? He wasn't the only man who suffered in a pre-Civil Rights America, and he certainly wasn't the only great orator of the day. Why him? And why is it that the Wright brothers were able to figure out controlled powered manned flight when there were certainly other teams who were better qualified, better funded, and they didn't achieve powered manned flight, and the Wright brothers beat them to it? There's something else at play here. About 3.5 years ago, I made a discovery. And this discovery profoundly changed my view on how I thought the world worked, and even profoundly changed the way in which I operated it. As it turns out, there's a pattern. As it turns out, all the great and inspiring leaders and organizations in the world, whether it's Apple or Martin Luther King or the Wright brothers, they all think, act, and communicate the exact same way. And it's the complete opposite to everyone else. All I did was codify it. And it's probably the world's simplest idea. I call it the golden circle. Why, how, what? This little idea explains why some organizations and some leaders are able to inspire where others aren't. Let me define the terms really quickly. Every single person, every single organization on the planet knows what they do, 100%. Some know how they do it, when you call it your differentiating value proposition, or your proprietary process, or your USP. But very, very few people or organizations know why they do what they do. And by why, I don't mean to make a profit. That's a result. It's always a result. By why, I mean what's your purpose? What's your cause? What's your belief? Why does your organization exist? Well, as a result, the way we think, the way we act, the way we communicate is from the outside in. It's obvious. We go from the clearest thing to the fuzziest thing. But the inspired leaders and the inspired organizations, regardless of their size, regardless of their industry, all think, act, and communicate from the inside out. Let me give you an example. I use Apple because it's easy to understand and everybody gets it. If Apple were like everyone else, a marketing message from them might sound like this. We make great computers. They're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? And that's how most of us communicate. That's how most marketing is done, that's how most sales is done, and that's how most of us communicate interpersonally. We say what we do, we say how we're different or how we're better, and we expect some sort of behavior, a purchase, a vote, something like that. Here's our new law firm. We have the best lawyers with the biggest clients. We have, we always perform for our clients who do business with us. Here's our new car. It gets great gas mileage. It has, leather seats. Buy our car. But it's uninspiring. Here's how Apple actually communicates. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to make great computers. Want to buy one? Totally different, right? You're ready to buy a computer from me. All I did was reverse the order of the information. People don't buy what you do, people buy why you do it. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. This explains why every single person in this room is perfectly comfortable buying a computer from Apple. But we're also perfectly comfortable buying an MP3 player from Apple, or a phone from Apple, or a DVR from Apple. But as I said before, Apple's just a computer company. There's nothing that distinguishes them structurally from any of their competitors. Their competitors are all equally qualified to make all of these products. In fact, they tried. A few years ago, Gateway came out with flat-screen TVs. They're eminently qualified to make flat-screen TVs. They've been making flat-screen monitors for years. Nobody bought one. They all came out with MP3 players.
Okay, you kind of get the gist there, right? I like to show that video because it's important to remember the why. Right? For me, in education, it's about fried chicken. Right? And we forget that a lot. And we saw in the Sir Robinson's video about the information age and the fact that we already know this, right? You guys already hear all the bad mouthing that goes on for the millennials, right? The generation of entitlement and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't believe that. I believe that we need to do a better job of engaging them. And we have to do a better job of engaging them. And there are over 80 million millennials in the United States, meaning that more than half of the population in the United States is now under the age of 35 years. Okay, so we have to find a way to engage these individuals in a different manner. So I'm going to show you a couple of applications. These are all free technologies that I've implemented in the classroom and to help better engage some of my students, right? Because I know that they have their cell phones with them. I know that they have their tablet devices. I know that they have their laptops with them. And instead of saying put them away and listen to some old guy talk for 4 hours, I want you to use those devices and I want you to engage in the learning process with them. So I'm going to just very briefly touch on some of these apps and show you how you can get some more information on these apps later if you want to use them. They work well in corporate trainings as well. I've used them to help train other organizations on key topics, and we use them to engage people. So Show Me is an app, it's a free app that allows all the participants in a particular room that are on the same Wi-Fi network to share computer screens. It doesn't matter if you have a PC or a Mac or a tablet or a phone. You can go on there, you can break out in learning teams, and I can say, show me what your team is working on. Just put it right up here on the main screen. Okay? We don't have to huddle around the small screen, we don't have to do that. So they know that the information that they're working on is going to be shared with the rest of the class. TED Talks, you guys have already seen a couple of the TED Talks here. Something that I love because It's coming from individuals that are actively working in a particular field, and they're sharing their knowledge of what they're seeing firsthand on a regular basis. How many people have heard of Khan Academy? Okay, most of you, right? I'm going to show you real quick. I promise this one's short. Just if you're not familiar with this.
Khan Academy is most known for its instruction review. So before I go any farther, let me show you a little bit of a montage.
So the hypothesis is now going to be 5. This animal's fossils are only found in this area of South America, a nice clean band here, and this part of Africa. We can integrate over the surface, and the notation usually is a capital sigma, National Assembly. They create the Committee of Public Safety, which sounds like a very nice committee. Notice, this is an aldehyde, and it's an alcohol. Start differentiating into effector and memory cells. A galaxy, hey, there's another galaxy. Oh look, there's another galaxy. And for dollars, is there 30 million plus the $20 million from the American manufacturer? If this does not blow your mind, then you have no emotion.
Okay, so if you're not familiar with Sal Khan, he's also a recovering financier. And he started doing these videos to help his nephews out with nothing except math. And finally, the kids, he would go down to visit them and offer to help them with their math homework face to face. And they said, no, Sal, we like your videos much better. So he started doing the videos and offering them for free. All of this is for free. So it's a great educational tool because research shows us that students like to engage in the classroom with the faculty members, going over key concepts, right? When we allow them to work on their homework and things like that in the class under the guidance of the instructor, students will go home and watch some of these videos in their free time. Oddly enough, and it helps some of the concepts stick. So he's done great work, and kudos to him for his great successes there. What most educators don't know is that you can have free access to this and set up your own classes and use his videos to help supplement your lectures, your concepts. It's even got grading tools and things like that you can go in there and set that up. So a great tool that I like to share with my faculty members. ScreenChomp is a fun app that you can use on your tablet device so that we can record a session like this, a lecture. It has a whiteboard feature on there. I can draw on my pad with my finger, take notes, and I can record the session, take the clip of it, and upload it into the school's website or the classroom website where the students are participating so they can go back and remember that concept. They can go back and listen to those key areas that they feel like they were struggling with as many times as they need in order to gain the proficiency that they need there. eClicker is a fun tool for me to be able to push out pop quizzes and things like that. You can take the quiz on your mobile phone, on your tablet, on your PC, whatever the case is, and it gets instant poll results. So some of you are familiar with SMS poll. Text, your response to this number, and we can watch the bar charts grow. That's just one of many, many features that you can use for free. TestMoz is a great way for faculty members to be able to create their own final exams or quizzes. It randomly generates questions, so you don't have to worry about things like cheating and sharing the information. And it has some great analytical tools on the back end, so faculty members can look at key areas where students are struggling the most and improve their lectures and content for the next time around. Okay, QR codes. How many people are aware of QR codes? I know Karen does. Karen created probably one of my favorite QR code marketing strategies in my class that I was teaching, and I still talk about it to this day to my new students. QR codes, many of you have probably seen them, not really fully aware of what they can do. They're free to create, and they're free to plaster on anything that you want to plaster them on, and they can take you to other content. So those of you that are interested and have a QR code scanner on your phone, around the room you'll notice that I put up pieces of paper that have a QR code on it. If you scan that, you will get a PDF document of all of the resources that I'm talking about in my presentation. So all of the apps, all of the tools, all the links to all the videos, etc. So, and it's all for free. So have at it. Voki is a really fun tool, and it works fantastic for adults. You think it'd be geared primarily to younger populations, but it works great with adult learners. Voki is a way for students to create digital avatars that they can then control, command, and narrate for them. So oftentimes we require students to make presentations in the class, right? What do they say? The thing that people hate more than death is public speaking. And oftentimes that's a distractor, right? From me being able to assess whether or not the students have actually gained the knowledge I was hoping that they would gain. So I want them to be able to show me that they understand the content. So go ahead, create a Voki, a digital avatar, where you narrate to the digital avatar to speak for you and present your slides for you. And they get to have fun with it, decorate it, put lipstick on it, things like that. I don't know if I'm running out of battery here or what. It's fun. It's a fun tool to use. It's free. And sometimes I'll have students do that where they create characters and then they interact as a learning team across the presentation or the classroom. Light binders is a fun tool. It's, again, one of just many, many out there. Is it cutting out?
Yes.
Okay.
The microphone?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I feel like maybe I was just going deaf in my own head here. Light binders is a great tool for students to start building digital portfolios or e-portfolios. A lot of colleges and universities right now highlight that as kind of a sales feature, if you will, a recruitment tool for students as they build an e-portfolio throughout the course of their program and studies, so that when they get to the end of their program, they have kind of a nice, what I like to call a brag book, what I used to call when I was in the banking business, a brag book. But now I'm sure there's got to be a kitschier name for it than that. But a great way for the students to highlight some of their successes and accomplishments throughout their course of study. So, and again, it's free to set up, and it's a fun tool to engage with across the thing. This is called a Work Cloud. This particular one came from a website called Wordle.net, again, a free tool. And I sometimes encourage my students to use this instead of a PowerPoint presentation when they do presentation. You get one slide, one image, and you can make it, you can go onto this website and you can make the word cloud any shape that you want, any colors that you want. You can make certain words stand out more than others. And it's a great way for students to come up here and again, rely on their content, their knowledge of the content, and not turn their back to the audience and read from the slides, and then on bullet 3 you see that I have that's kind of what it ends up sounding like, right? So now they get to create one image, they get to have some fun with it, the process, and they get to engage it that way. I also use it for high school students when they build magazine covers of themselves as they build personal branding, another area of passion of mine, and they have to use the word cloud on their magazine cover in order to highlight that. Blogging, I feel like sometimes this seems a little bit outdated, but it's a great way to engage students in dialogue with professionals in a particular industry so that they are actually communicating. Maybe if I stand right here.
You can just switch swap out, use the other way.
Okay. Just give me 1 second. Can you hear me now? Thank you. It's a great way to engage students in dialogue with professionals in the industry so they're hearing firsthand and they know that it's not just the teachers spewing a bunch of bull, right? I feel like sometimes that's how kids are with parents, right? Oh, it's not true because mom and dad said it. It's not true because the teacher said it. Oh, but Steve, he's a finance guy, he works in that industry, so it must be true. So it's a great way to kind of create some alternative assignments for students to engage in real-world dialogue. Because at the end of the day, right, like Sir Ken Robinson says, it's not just going to school and getting a piece of paper and getting a degree that helps you get a job. It's a combination of educating yourself and having real-world life experience that you can apply and prove to your employer that you have those abilities. Okay, POW is a really fun app on your tablet device if you've got a camera on there. I like to have my students run around and go outside, create a scene for themselves, take pictures of themselves, and then they convert it into a comic strip to express the dialogue that's taking place in a particular case or scenario. So again, it's just a fun way for them to participate in the content by actively engaging with it. So it doesn't take any more time to create learning lessons and things like this using some of these technologies than it does going through a traditional method. A lot of times, again, with faculty members, if you've been teaching for a long time, they're very set in their ways, they like to do that. I've never one time had a faculty member take a chance and use one of these apps and come back to me and say, that was a terrible mistake, it took me way more time than I wanted. In fact, every single one was exactly the opposite, okay? And I'll prove it to you in a minute. So Skype, you're all probably very familiar with Skype. I use Skype on a regular basis, especially for my marketing classes, because the students always come to me, right? I have my students create a concept, product, or idea in their marketing class. I don't want to read another marketing paper on Southwest Airlines or Starbucks or anything along those lines, right? And every single time, students come up with these great ideas for these products, and they say, tell me who your target audience is. Everyone in the world. Everyone wants this. It's going to be awesome. Okay, so what country are we going to start with? Oh, I think it's going to be great in Europe. Oh, I think it's going to be great here and there. Okay, great. Coincidentally, I happen to know somebody who teaches at a university over there. Why don't we get some of their students on a Skype call next Wednesday night, and you pitch your idea to them and see how it works in Italy, how your concept's going to work. What? So now they're engaged with a group of students in another market. We recently did this in a marketing class, and the students, actually this is I'm going to jump ahead a little bit on a story I'm going to share at the end, but we're doing some experiential learning or service learning in my marketing classes, and we partnered with a nonprofit organization that created an app that helps autistic learners. Okay, children with autism, and it helps them through the learning process. And we created an app on a tablet. It's fantastic. They did a great job with the app. They don't have the marketing skills. So my marketing students developed a marketing strategy for them. And the organization came to us and they said, we really wanted to make some inroads into India, because we know that there's more than 35 million children with autism in India. And that's just the ones that they know about. And so I said, guess what? I happen to know somebody that works in a business school in India. Why don't we see if we can get their students on the call and we can hash out with them what some of the challenges are, right? So we get to learn a lot of interesting things. If you didn't know that, if you didn't have the experience to go over there, if you didn't spend the extra time to do the research to realize that, you know what? While cell phones tend to be readily available in India, tablet devices aren't. And so the app doesn't work, but only on a tablet. So we had to kind of come up with an approach like that. But some great opportunities for the students to not only learn, but to give something back to the nonprofit that we were working with in the first place. Okay, this website, hands down, is probably one of my favorite, especially in the area of marketing, because what they do is they hand out awards in all kinds of categories related to social media, branding, web development, social campaigns, and things like that. And I'm going to show you two really short videos, less than a minute apiece, one maybe a minute and a half, on how some of the technologies that I've already mentioned are being used in the real world and some of the impactful results.
Doritos is already the most popular snack on the planet. So, to increase sales for 2010, we decided to make it something more than just a snack. We looked at how teenagers were spending their money and realized that for the price of a 99-cent bag of Doritos, they could just as easily buy an iTunes download or an Xbox upgrade. To compete for their dollar, we turned our late-night flavored chips into an entertainment experience that iTunes and Xbox could never offer. Featuring one of the world's biggest pop icons, Rihanna. With a bag of the chips, users can direct their own version of a world premiere video for Rihanna's new track, Who's That Chick? An IR marker on the back of each bag gives users control over the video, letting them switch between Rihanna's day side and her night side as often as they like, creating their own custom version of the video. Inspired by the potential of this project, Doritos decided to expand it into a global music experience. 5 bands from 5 different continents performed, again, controlled by you, the user. 360-degree camera technology lets you guide your own way through all 5 videos using simple click and drag controls. Media strategy was simple. Just lead the story and let it spread itself. MTV, Access Hollywood, and top music outlets around the web continue to break updates on the project. But not that to show you the Rihanna video. It's The only way to see it is with a bag of Doritos Late Night flavored chips. To date, the average visit tops out nearly 5 minutes. Unique visits are approaching 500,000, and the honest Facebook posts and tweets have mentioned Doritos over 30 times. And we still have not spent a single dollar on media. Doritos turned an ordinary bag of snack chips into a global music venue. Not bad for 99 cents.
Okay, so I like to share that video, and maybe you're not a Rihanna fan, that's okay. The point is, they didn't spend a single dollar on marketing. Not a single dollar. And they have 500,000 new users who are spending more than 5 minutes on their content page. And if you don't know anything about digital marketing, 5 minutes is an eternity. That's like longer than you're sitting in this room listening to me talk today. So it's really important to understand the ways that some of these technologies can be implemented. Okay? All of you are very familiar with what's happening to McDonald's right now, right? And their sales and their stock prices and all these kinds of things. And I had the pleasure of attending a fantastic marketing seminar last week with one of my favorite companies, mobileyouth.com. They do a fantastic job of researching the millennial population. And they did a great presentation on the fact that the reason why McDonald's is suffering so bad right now, especially with the millennial population, is because he described them as being, they want the people that they engage with, including the retailers and the places where they choose to spend their dollars, to be empathetic to them, right? They like empathy more than they like efficiency. So they'll go to Starbucks because they can hang out there. And there's a sense of community there. And there's a culture that surrounds that type of environment. And you don't get that at McDonald's. You get there and I don't know what they get 99-cent hamburgers or whatever you get. You get in and you get out. And that's not the way the generations are working these days. This, on the other hand, is. This is called augmented reality. You can see what he's doing. He's trying on shoes on his real clothes. So that's how people are purchasing their items these days. I got to try it on the actual outfit that I'm wearing. I got to share it with my friends on Facebook so I can get that reaffirmation. Yeah, dude, those look cool on you. You should definitely get that. Right? And then I can just click purchase and they come to my house. I paid the same price for them. I didn't have to spend any time out of my day. And guess what? I got to incorporate it into my sense of community. Right? Because I got to incorporate it into my social network. And so, some great opportunities there. I actually, there's another app that I like to use where you can create your own augmented reality. It's called Arrangement, and it's way more than I can cover in this particular class. But if you have time at the end, in the back of the room, I put up a picture of the video from Sir Ken Robinson's video. And if you hold your phone up to it, if you have this app, you can see how we can incorporate augmented reality into the real world. So it's a fun and interesting way to engage your students. So this app is called Simple Minds. It's used as a mind mapping tool. Students can go on there and create stuff on their computers, tablets, or smartphones, convert it to a PDF and upload it as an assignment. Just another way to kind of get the students thinking about key concepts and how things are all kind of interconnected there. Okay. Mashable, you're all probably very familiar with this. Huffington Post, things like this. Great way to kind of culminate your news sources into one space. They use algorithms to figure out what are the most popular stories based on hits across the internet, and they culminate them by order of preference there. So it's a nice thing to do to bring current events into your classroom, even minutes before you start teaching. Okay, now we're transitioning into this experiential piece. And so a lot of times when you look at education, there's clear that there's a huge shift into online. Right? That's again where the consumers want to be, and that's fine because I firmly believe that education can be delivered well in an online space. Catch a Fire, and the next couple of sites that I'm going to give you, allow you to connect with nonprofits that are looking for kind of pro bono work or the opportunity to partner with them in what's known as service learning. Service learning is not a new concept. It's been around since 1938. It's now sometimes referred to as experiential learning. I refer to it as an internship on steroids. So if any of you went to traditional schools, you might have had the opportunity to go on an internship or study abroad type of opportunity. And while that's great to be able to get that opportunity, I find that a lot of those internships don't result in direct connection with learning job skills, right? Because the person on the other end, the employer themselves, has to be as motivated and as interested to teach you as you are to be there and to learn something as a student. And so oftentimes you get stuck fetching coffee and doing trash cans and things like that, but you didn't really learn the world of being an accountant, as an example. So, through service learning, we can actually take learning and apply it directly to real-world opportunities. I mentioned to you about my marketing classes where we're actually, instead of writing papers on marketing concepts, we're actually writing a marketing strategy for a nonprofit organization. In an accounting class where students are actually setting up an entire accounting system for a brand new nonprofit that just started. Because again, a lot of times people that run nonprofits are extremely passionate about an area that we talked about. The students that came up here earlier and talked about the language, keeping the language preservation. What a fantastic concept. Hopefully English is one of those, by the way. Especially with the text messaging talk here. But what a fantastic idea. But I don't think either one of those two gentlemen back there are going to claim to be accounting experts, or going to claim to be marketing experts, or going to claim to be long-term strategists, right? But we're teaching these things in the classroom. We're teaching things related to health and human services and where some of these community challenges lie. And we have smart people in front of us who need an avenue to be able to exercise how to implement that into the real world. So Catch a Fire, Sparked, micro-volunteerism is another term that they use for pro bono work. Okay? Again, these sites were originally set up because successful people, you know, doctors, lawyers, attorneys, all these kinds of things, accountants, they have good hearts and they want to go out and they want to do good things in the community, but they don't want to dig ditches on the weekends. They don't want to build houses. They don't have the time commitment that it takes to do some of the physical activities, but they still want to give back in a certain way. And here they can go onto these sites and find projects that they can complete in an hour. They can find projects that take 3 months to complete. And so we're trying to leverage this with our students and get the faculty members who have long-term expertise in a particular industry to share this information. Taproot is another one. All right, so what does it all mean, right? I shared a lot of information with you in a short period of time. What you can see here is in the 1 year where I implemented this at a couple of the campuses that I oversee, we increased faculty engagement almost 20%. Okay, that means the faculty members are more re-energized to be in the classroom. They want to be there. They're more actively engaged in the learning process themselves as the instructors. Okay, that's a campus in comparison to the university as a whole. And this chart is very difficult to read, but basically what that chart tells you is that it virtually eliminated absenteeism in the classroom. Okay, students come to class. They don't leave early. They don't come late. They don't have their friends on the roster. Okay, they're here and they want to be here. So a lot of this information is available to you in the back of the room. I presented this information last year at a conference, at an education conference, and I made a poster board session. So I took some of the key elements off there. I mentioned the QR codes around the room and the augmented reality piece. And that's what I have to share for you today. So hopefully nobody feels like they want chicken for dinner.